For 11 years, the girl pressed her palm to her ear. Every doctor said the same thing: permanent, nothing we can do. Her father spent millions, flew to Seoul, Paris, Johannesburg, begged the world's best to look again. They all shook their heads. Then a maid saw something no one else did, and what she discovered behind that child's ear will leave you speechless. Grant Cole was a billionaire. Cliffside mansion, private empire, more wealth than most see in a lifetime. But his daughter Amelia was born deaf. 11 years old, never heard a sound. Grant tried everything, specialists who charge fortunes per consultation. They ran scans, tests, procedures. All said the same: irreversible, accept it. But Grant couldn't accept it. Amelia was all he had left. His wife died bringing her into this world. What he didn't know: the answer wasn't in a hospital. It was standing in his hallway, holding a dustcloth. Welcome to Life in Stories. I'm so glad you're here. These are stories that remind us what truly matters: love, courage, second chances, and the miracles hidden in everyday moments. If this is your first time watching, please subscribe. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from today? Grant Cole's estate perched on the cliffs of Northern California like a crown of glass and steel, suspended between sky and ocean. Journalists called him the Pacific King, tech magnate, venture architect, a man whose algorithms shaped how half the world communicated. But inside his mansion, there was no communication at all. Only silence. Not the kind that brought peace. The kind that felt like something died and never left. Grant had built this silence intentionally. Every corner of the estate was designed around one rule: nothing loud ever enters Amelia's world. No televisions blaring in distant rooms. No music drifting through hallways. No raised voices during staff meetings. The housekeepers were trained to walk on soft-soled shoes. Doors were fitted with hydraulic hinges that closed without sound. Even the grandfather clock in the foyer had been stopped years ago. Grant believed silence protected his daughter. Instead, it became a tomb. Amelia Cole sat by the window overlooking the Pacific, knees tucked beneath her, sketch pad balanced on her lap. She was 11 now, dark curls pulled into a loose braid, eyes the color of storm clouds. She drew the same thing every day: waves crashing against the rocks below. Waves she had never heard. Her pencil moved in smooth, practiced strokes, capturing the curl of whitecaps, the spray frozen mid-arc. She tilted her head slightly, watching the rhythm of the water, feeling its pulse through the glass. Then, like clockwork, she pressed her palm to the spot behind her left ear. She held it there. 5 seconds. 10. Her brow furrowed, just slightly, like she was waiting for something to answer back. It never did. Grant watched from the hallway, chest tight. He'd seen her do this 1,000 times. Every morning. Every evening. Sometimes in between. He'd asked doctors about it. They shrugged. Self-soothing behavior. Common in children with sensory differences. But it didn't look like comfort. It looked like pain she'd learned to hide. Grant turned away before she saw him staring. Guilt crawled up his spine the way it always did when he looked at her too long. Because every time he saw Amelia, he saw Moriel. His wife had died giving birth to her. Complications during delivery. Hemorrhaging. Doctors moving too slowly, reacting too late. The same phrases haunted him for 11 years. Too much blood loss, too little oxygen, nothing we can do. He'd lost Moriel before he ever heard his daughter's first cry. And somewhere deep in his bones, he believed it was his fault. So he threw everything at Amelia's deafness: millions of dollars, the best specialists on earth, experimental treatments that existed only in research wings of foreign hospitals. He flew her to Paris, Seoul, Johannesburg. Begged neurologists and audiologists to look again, scan again, try again. Every single one said the same thing. Her deafness is irreversible. You need to accept that, Mr. Cole. But acceptance felt like surrender. And surrendering felt like losing Moriel all over again. Elena Reyes arrived on a grey Tuesday afternoon, clutching a folder of medical bills and wearing shoes 2 years past replacement. 23 years old. Community college dropout. taking cleaning jobs anywhere she could find them because her mother's kidney medication didn't pay for itself. She never imagined she'd be hired at a place like this, a mansion where the floors gleamed like black mirrors and the ceilings stretched so high they seemed to breathe. She kept her head down, moved quietly, blended into the background like wallpaper. But Elena noticed things. She noticed how Amelia flinched sometimes, not from sound, but from something internal. A tightness. A pressure no one else could see. She noticed the girl always touched the same spot behind her left ear, fingertips pressing gently, almost instinctively, like checking a wound. And she noticed something even stranger. Amelia could sense vibrations no one else felt. Not just the obvious ones, footsteps on hardwood, doors closing in adjacent rooms, but tiny ones. The hum of the refrigerator 3 rooms away. The flutter of a sparrow landing on the balcony railing. The faint shift in air pressure before the wind changed direction. Elena watched the girl tilt her head during these moments, eyes sharp, tracking invisible threads of motion through the air. It didn't make sense. Deaf children could feel vibrations, sure, but not like this. Not with this precision. One morning, while dusting the upstairs hallway, Elena saw Amelia sitting alone near the window, eyes squeezed shut, palm pressed harder than usual against that same spot behind her ear. Her face was tight, strained. Elena's breath caught. She'd seen that expression before, on her younger brother, Matteo. Years ago, before they discovered the small growth pressing against a nerve in his skull. Misdiagnosed for years as migraines, sensory issues, behavioral problems. One scan changed everything. Treatable. Fixable. Missed by a dozen doctors. Elena's heart pounded. She stepped closer, knelt gently beside Amelia, and tapped the floor twice. Amelia opened her eyes. Elena signed slowly. "Does it hurt?" Amelia hesitated. Then nodded. She pointed behind her ear. The same place. Always the same place. Elena's pulse roared in her ears. That night, she couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment in her mind, the flinch, the pressure, the pattern hidden beneath a decade of medical assumptions. She thought about the discoloration she'd glimpsed beneath Amelia's hairline. Faint, but there. She thought about the way every doctor had already decided the girl's condition was hopeless. And she thought about what no one else seemed to be asking. What if they were wrong? Elena lay in the narrow staff quarters, staring at the ceiling, whispering to herself in the dark. What if she's not deaf, the way they think? She knew she had no right to interfere. She knew she wasn't a doctor. She knew speaking up could cost her everything. But she also knew this. No one else was paying attention. And silence, real silence, could kill. Elena found her on a Thursday morning. Amelia was curled in the corner of the library, knees pulled tight to her chest, face buried in her arms. Her shoulders trembled, not from crying, but from something deeper. Something silent and sharp. Elena set down her cleaning caddy and knelt slowly beside her. She tapped the floor gently. Amelia didn't look up at first. Then, slowly, she lifted her head. Her eyes were red-rimmed, glassy with unshed tears. Elena signed carefully, "What's wrong?" Amelia hesitated. Her small hands moved shakily in response. "Inside hurts." She pointed behind her left ear. The same spot. Always the same spot. But this time, her fingers pressed harder, desperate, like she was trying to claw the pain out from beneath the bone. Elena's stomach dropped. She'd watched this pattern for weeks now. The flinching. The touching. The strange sensitivity to vibrations. And now, pain. Consistent, localized, worsening pain. This wasn't the behavior of someone born with a damaged cochlea. This was the behavior of someone whose body was fighting something. Recognition slammed into her like cold water. This is not neurological deafness. Elena's hands moved on instinct. She gently brushed Amelia's hair back and leaned closer, studying the area behind the girl's ear with the kind of focus she'd learned from years of caring for Matteo. She saw it again, clearer this time. A faint indentation in the skin, almost imperceptible unless you knew to look. And beneath it, a subtle swelling pattern. Not infection. Not inflammation from the outside. Something inside. pressing outward. Her pulse hammered. She remembered Matteo at 9 years old, screaming in the middle of the night because his head felt like it was splitting open. Doctors had called it migraines. Sensory processing disorder. Anxiety. It took 3 years and one persistent ER nurse to order the right scan. A benign cyst. Nestled against a nerve cluster near his ear. Small. Fixable. Missed by everyone because they'd been treating symptoms instead of searching for a cause. Elena's breath came fast and shallow now. What if Amelia's deafness isn't permanent? What if it's structural? What if no one ever looked because they decided she was hopeless from birth? The thought made her feel sick. She sat back on her heels, staring at the little girl in front of her, and felt the weight of a terrible choice settle on her shoulders. She could stay silent. Keep her head down. Protect her job, her paycheck, her mother's medication. Or she could speak. And risk everything. That night, Elena lay awake in the narrow staff quarters, her mother's voice echoing in her mind. Mija, attention is a kind of love. The world doesn't fall apart because of hate, it falls apart because no one is paying attention. Her mother had said that years ago, during one of Matteo's worst episodes, when Elena felt too young and too powerless to do anything but watch him suffer. But she wasn't powerless now. She was the only one paying attention. The next morning, Elena found Grant in his office, a glass-walled room overlooking the cliffs, filled with monitors displaying stock tickers, encrypted emails, algorithmic projections. He didn't look up when she entered. Mr. Cole. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. He glanced at her briefly, then returned to his screen. If this is about the schedule. It's about Amelia. That made him stop. He turned slowly, eyes sharp and guarded. What about her? Elena's hands trembled. She clasped them behind her back to hide it. I've seen something the doctors didn't. Grant's expression darkened. Excuse me. Behind her ear. There's swelling. A pattern. It's not normal for congenital deafness. His jaw tightened. You're a maid, Miss Reyes. Not a physician. I know. Her voice cracked. But my brother, he had something similar. A structural issue everyone missed because they assumed his condition was permanent. And I'm seeing the same signs in Amelia. Grant stood abruptly, chair scraping against the floor. Do you have any idea how many specialists have examined my daughter? How many scans, how many tests, how many? He stopped, exhaling hard. You think you know better than them? No, sir. Elena met his eyes, even though her knees felt weak. I think they stopped looking. The words hung in the air like a live wire. Grant stared at her. His face was a storm, anger, disbelief, and something else. Something fragile and dangerous. Hope. He hated that she'd put it there. But he couldn't ignore it. 24 hours later, Amelia sat in a sterile examination room at the Stanford Cranial Institute, electrodes attached to her scalp, a contrast dye coursing through her veins. Grant stood behind the glass partition, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tight it ached. Elena had been sent home. He'd told her he'd call if anything came of this. He didn't expect anything would. The imaging technician frowned at her screen. Doctor, can you look at this? The specialist, a woman in her 50s with silver hair and steady hands, leaned over the monitor. Her expression shifted. Run it again, she said quietly. They did. 3 times. Then the doctor stepped into the observation room where Grant waited. She held a tablet displaying cross-sectional scans of Amelia's skull. Mr. Cole, she said slowly, I need you to look at this. She pointed to a small, dark mass nestled near the base of Amelia's temporal bone, pressing directly against the auditory nerve pathway. This is a subcranial arachnoid cyst. Benign. Slow-growing. Likely present since birth or early infancy. Grant's heart stopped. It's compressing the nerve responsible for auditory signal transmission. Not severing it. Compressing it. Her words came faster now. It wouldn't show up on standard hearing tests. Audiologists measure nerve response, but if the nerve is being mechanically obstructed, it mimics permanent damage. That's why no one caught it. Grant couldn't breathe. The cyst is easily measurable now. But because Amelia carried the label congenital deafness, no one ordered this kind of imaging. They stopped looking for a cause. The doctor met his eyes, and she spoke the words that shattered him. Mr. Cole, this was never permanent. The room tilted. Grant gripped the edge of the table, vision blurring, chest collapsing inward. 11 years. 11 years of silence. 11 years of watching his daughter grow up in a world she should never have been trapped in. And it had all been preventable. The maid, the 23-year-old girl with no credentials and worn-out shoes, had seen it in 3 weeks. The best doctors in the world had missed it for over a decade. Grant sank into the chair, face in his hands, and for the first time since Moriel died. He wept. Grant Cole sat alone in the surgical waiting room, elbows on his knees, staring at the grey linoleum floor. He hadn't slept in 36 hours. Hadn't eaten. Hadn't done anything but replay the doctor's words in his mind like a song he couldn't turn off. This was never permanent. 11 years. 11 years of flying across continents, begging specialists, spending fortunes on experimental trials. 11 years of watching his daughter live in silence, believing it was irreversible, inevitable, his fault. And it had all been a lie. Not malicious. Worse than that. Lazy. Every doctor had seen the same label in her file, congenital sensory neural deafness. And every single one had stopped looking. They ran the standard tests, confirmed the diagnosis someone else had made, and moved on. No one questioned it. No one dug deeper. No one cared enough to wonder why a child born deaf would flinch from internal pressure, or touch the same spot behind her ear every single day, or sense vibrations with unnatural precision. They saw incurable, and they walked away. Rage boiled in Grant's chest, hot and acidic. But beneath it was something worse. Guilt. Because he had trusted them. He had believed them. And in doing so, he had failed his daughter just as completely as he'd failed Moriel. He pressed his palms against his eyes and exhaled a shaking breath. The door opened. The surgeon stepped through, still in scrubs, mask pulled down around her neck. Grant shot to his feet. "She's stable," the doctor said quickly. "The procedure went well. We successfully drained and removed the cyst." Grant's knees nearly buckled. And the nerve. The surgeon hesitated. "We won't know the extent of recovery for a few days. There's always risk with nerve compression cases, scar tissue, delayed response, partial function. But structurally, we've removed the obstruction." So she could hear. She could. The doctor's voice was careful. "But I can't promise how much, or how quickly. The brain will need time to relearn auditory processing." Grant nodded, throat tight. "You can see her soon. She's in recovery now." When they finally let him into the room, Amelia was still groggy, eyes half open, small body dwarfed by the hospital bed. Elena sat beside her. Grant froze in the doorway. He hadn't asked her to be here. Hadn't even thought about her since the scans came back. But there she was, holding Amelia's hand, signing gently even though the girl was barely conscious. "You're okay. You're safe. I'm here." Amelia's fingers twitched in weak response. Then, the heart monitor beeped. Amelia flinched. Her eyes flew open, wide and startled, head turning sharply toward the machine. Elena's breath caught. Grant stepped closer, pulse hammering. The monitor beeped again. Amelia's gaze locked onto it. Her mouth opened slightly, confusion flickering across her face. Then she made a sound. A small, breathy laugh, fragile and bewildered, like she'd just discovered something magical and terrifying at the same time. She pressed her hand to her throat, feeling the vibration of her own voice. And she laughed again. Tears streamed down Grant's face. He moved to her bedside, knelt down, and whispered her name. "Amelia." Her head turned. Slowly. Toward him. Her lips parted. Her brow furrowed. She heard him. Grant covered his mouth with his hand, chest heaving with silent sobs. "Amelia," he whispered again, voice breaking. "It's me. It's Dad." She stared at him, eyes filling with tears she didn't understand yet. And then she smiled. The hospital administrators arrived 2 hours later. 3 of them, crisp suits and tight smiles, clipboards in hand. They spoke in low, clipped tones to the surgeon outside Amelia's room. Grant caught fragments through the door. Unsanctioned medical opinion. Liability concerns. Non-licensed personnel advising on patient care. His blood turned to ice. He stepped into the hallway. "What are you talking about?" The lead administrator, a man with wire-rimmed glasses and a too-smooth voice, turned to him. "Mr. Cole, we're simply reviewing the circumstances that led to Miss Hart's imaging referral. It's come to our attention that a member of your household staff provided medical recommendations without credentials or authority." Grant's jaw tightened. "She told me to get my daughter scanned." "She diagnosed your daughter, Mr. Cole. That's a legal distinction." "She saved her life." The man's expression didn't change. "We're not disputing the outcome. But protocol exists for a reason." Something snapped inside Grant. He turned sharply, strode back into the recovery room, and pointed at Elena. "You." She looked up, startled. "You had no right to touch her." His voice was loud, jagged, shaking with fear he didn't know how to name. "You're not a doctor. You had no business examining my daughter. Do you understand the risk you took? The liability? What if you'd been wrong?" Elena stood slowly, face pale. "Mr. Cole." "Security," he snapped to the nurse behind him. "Escort her out." Elena's eyes widened. "Wait." "Now." A guard appeared, took her gently by the arm. Elena looked at Amelia, stricken. And Amelia, still groggy, still barely understanding what was happening, reached out weakly. Her mouth opened. A sound came out. Soft, shaky, barely a whisper, but unmistakable. "Don't take her." The room went silent. Grant's heart stopped. Amelia's first words. "Not Dad. Not help. Don't take her." Elena's face crumpled. The guard hesitated. But Grant didn't move. Didn't speak. He just stood there, frozen, as they led her away. 6 hours later, the senior surgeon found Grant in the hallway. She didn't wait for pleasantries. I reviewed Amelia's full medical history. Grant looked up, exhausted. 14 specialists saw her over the years. 11 of them noted unusual pressure symptoms in their notes. 5 specifically mentioned the area behind her left ear. She handed him a tablet with the records pulled up. None of them followed up. None ordered structural imaging. Do you know why? Grant said nothing. Because challenging a congenital diagnosis requires time, additional scans, second opinions. It's not profitable. It's not clean. And if they're wrong, it opens them to liability. Her voice hardened. Your maid didn't just notice something, Mr. Cole. She pointed us to the exact location we needed to examine. Without her, we would have done the same standard workup every other doctor did. She paused. And we would have missed it too. Grant's throat closed. The surgeon leaned closer. If you want someone to blame, blame the system. Blame the specialists who saw your daughter as a file instead of a person. But don't blame the one person who actually looked at her and saw. She walked away. Grant sat in the empty hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, and felt the full weight of what he'd done. He'd condemned the person who saved his daughter. He stood abruptly, legs shaking, and ran toward the exit. He had to find her. Grant found her sitting on a concrete bench outside the hospital's east entrance, knees pulled up, arms wrapped around herself like she was trying to disappear. Elena didn't look up when he approached. She just stared at the parking lot, eyes red-rimmed, face hollow. Miss Reyes. She flinched but didn't respond. Grant stood there for a long moment, hands trembling at his sides. Then, slowly, he sank to his knees in front of her. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. Elena finally looked at him, confused, guarded. I was terrified, he continued, words spilling out in a rush. Terrified that I'd been wrong for 11 years. Terrified that I'd failed her. And when they started talking about liability and protocols, he stopped, swallowing hard. I lashed out at the one person who actually saw her. Elena's lip quivered. You didn't see a diagnosis, Grant whispered. You didn't see a disability or a label or a lost cause. You saw her. You saw Amelia. And because of that, you gave her back something I thought was gone forever. Tears slid down his face. I'm so sorry. Elena covered her mouth with her hand, shoulders shaking. Grant reached out carefully. Please. Come back. She's asking for you. Elena's breath hitched. She spoke. He nodded, smiling through tears. She said your name. When they returned to the recovery room, Amelia was sitting up slightly, eyes brighter, more alert. She saw Elena step through the door, and her whole face lit up. Elena crossed the room quickly, kneeling beside the bed. She signed instinctively, Are you okay? Amelia's hands moved in response, but then she stopped. Her mouth opened, and sound came out. Hi. It was small, breathy, uncertain, but it was hers. Elena's hands flew to her face, tears streaming. Amelia's eyes widened, like she'd just heard herself for the first time and couldn't believe it was real. She tried again. Thank you. Her voice wobbled, each syllable careful and deliberate. Then she reached for Elena's hand and whispered, Elena. Grant stood frozen in the doorway, hand pressed over his mouth, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. 11 years. 11 years of silence. And now his daughter's voice, fragile and new and alive, filled the room like sunlight breaking through storm clouds. He sank into the chair beside the bed and wept. 2 days later, the hospital cleared Amelia for discharge. Grant brought her home to the Cliffside estate, but this time the house felt different. The oppressive quiet was gone. Music drifted softly through the hallways now, gentle piano pieces chosen specifically for Amelia's auditory therapy. Staff no longer walked on eggshells. Voices rose and fell naturally. Doors closed with normal, everyday sounds. The silence that had once felt like protection now felt like what it truly was. A prison. Grant had built it with love. But love, he realized, wasn't the same as understanding. One evening, he sat with Amelia in the library, a small device resting on the table between them. There's something I want you to hear, he said gently. Amelia tilted her head, curious. He pressed play. A woman's voice filled the room, warm, lilting, full of laughter. Grant, stop. You're going to drop her. I'm not going to drop her, Moriel, I've got. You absolutely are. Give her to me. Come here, sweet girl. Come to Mama. Amelia's eyes went wide. She looked at her father, confusion and recognition flickering across her face. That's your mother, Grant whispered, voice breaking. That's Moriel. Talking to you when you were 3 days old. Amelia's hands trembled. She leaned closer to the speaker, listening with an intensity that made Grant's chest ache. You are so loved, Amelia. So loved. Don't you ever forget that. The recording ended. Amelia sat in silence, real silence this time, the kind that wasn't imposed but chosen. Then she turned to her father, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, She sounds pretty. Grant pulled her into his arms and held her while they both cried. Over the following weeks, the house transformed. Amelia began auditory therapy, learning to process the flood of sound her brain had never been trained to interpret. She flinched at loud noises, laughed at unexpected ones, spent hours listening to recordings of rain, wind, laughter, birdsong. Elena stayed. Not as a maid, but as Amelia's caretaker and advocate. Grant insisted. He paid for her mother's medical bills in full, gave her a suite in the West Wing, and made it clear she was part of the family now. And slowly, carefully, Amelia began to speak. Her vocabulary grew. Her confidence bloomed. Her voice, once a whisper, became stronger, clearer, hers. One afternoon, Grant found them standing on the balcony overlooking the Pacific. Amelia stood at the railing, eyes closed, face turned toward the wind. The waves crashed against the rocks below, wild and relentless and impossibly loud. Elena stood beside her, hand resting gently on her shoulder. Amelia opened her eyes and turned to Elena, a look of wonder on her face. She touched Elena's hand and whispered, "It's loud, but beautiful." Elena smiled, tears glistening. "Just like you." That night, Grant stood alone in his office, staring out at the ocean. He thought about the millions he'd spent. The specialists, the private jets, the desperation. And he thought about the young woman with worn-out shoes and a folder of medical bills, who had walked into his home with nothing but attention and care. She hadn't cured Amelia. She'd simply seen her. Grant closed his eyes, exhaling slowly. Sometimes miracles don't come from money or medicine. Sometimes they come from the people we overlook, the ones who pay attention when everyone else has stopped looking. The ones who love quietly. The ones who see us not as problems to solve, but as people worth saving. Grant turned away from the window, wiping his eyes. And for the first time in 11 years, he felt something close to peace.
Thank you so much for watching. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support means everything and helps us keep bringing you these powerful stories. I'll see you in the next one. Take care and keep believing.